Hey guys, I just wanted to share my plans for Path of Exile 2. So you might know that I'm a pretty big Deadeye enjoyer, and as an avid blaster that I am, I'll be of course still playing Deadeye in Path of Exile 2. Of course, there's also Monk if you wanna blast, but I decided to kind of stick to my roots and see how Deadeye feels in Path of Exile 2, if the clear and all that can come kind of close to Path of Exile 1, hopefully. So I cooked up sort of a plan for me, like bare bones, to kind of have at least something going in. If you guys don't really like spoilers and you don't want to see the skill gems, so this is probably not for you. But if you guys want to hear what I think and kind of my plan going in and what I will be trying to accomplish, so I guess you can continue watching. If not, it's probably not for you. So of course, I won't be showing any of the bosses or anything like that. It's just gonna be skill gems and my thought process, and that's basically about it. Not, I might talk a little bit about some of the ideas that other people have had, but I think Dreamcore kind of covered most of them in regards to things like Eldritch Battery, right, with conversions not working the way they do in Path of Exile 1. So I don't really need to talk to that. You can go look at other content creators, of course, that are more well versed in that type of thing. I am primarily a build maker, I guess, so I guess we're gonna be starting out already. I wouldn't say this is a build guide. This is just my thoughts, and I think it will probably work. A lot of it is probably not gonna change for me during the game. There's only a couple of areas where I'm not exactly sure how to make sure that things feel good, but the way I see it, what I cooked up should be fine in most scenarios. So let's take a look. So, first of all, of course, we're going to be playing Lightning Arrow, right? This is going to be our primary clear skill. And now this is, I want to say without a doubt, the best clear skill in the game. Probably. Well, I guess I can't say without a doubt and probably in one sentence, but in my eyes, this seems like it's going to be one of the best clear skills in the game, as it kind of is in Path of Exile 1, right? With some exceptions. But of course, there are a lot of scenarios where the clear can vary, but most in most cases, I think this is what you will want to do. So there's a couple of things about Lightning Arrow. One is that in Path of Exile 2, it actually chains. So combined with, actually I'll talk about that later, but we do want to make sure that we get the most out of it, right? Chaining is a pretty important aspect, so you can do chain. So these are the 3 support gems for clear that I think you will most likely be going with. So first is chain. This is what I'm leaning more towards. I'll explain why soon. But chain, without any, assuming we don't have anything on the tree completely for chain, like no extra chain, and ascendancy also. Currently, we don't know if Deadeye has a +1 chain ascendancy like it does in Path of Exile 1. I wouldn't imagine so. So let's assume that this is all we have, right? So we have 2 chains, assuming these are chains, right? Like it does make sense that these 2 are chains. It might not be. It might like work kind of like it works in Path of Exile 1, where it just hits and then it chains off, which I'm not sure what to make of that, but I would imagine it's just that this means that it just chains 2 times. Albeit it's worded a little bit weird, but that's probably what it means. So because those are chains, chain support will work pretty good, simply because we have plus 100%, right? So we get +1, which makes it that it chains 3 times, 100%, so 6 times. Overall, we're gaining 50% damage, since we're chaining, if we're talking about groups, right? So we have 6 chains at 50% damage. That's 300%, which amounts to 50% more damage from with if we're talking about the base version, right? So you could potentially find some gem that deals that adds around 50% more damage, which would technically make it the same. But gems are limited, so we kind of have to be smart about which gems we choose. So I think that chain will most likely be the best option for Lightning Arrow in combination with Lightning Rod. I'll talk about soon. But if for some reason it doesn't work like that, or there's some other ideas that you have, you can also go with Pierce, of course. Pierce is 70% more damage. That's basically about it. Assuming you hit the mob and then it pierces and hits another mob, that's basically just plus 70% damage, so can't go wrong with that, just like in Path of Exile 1, right? And then there's also Volley. Now Volley does have one interesting thing about it. In Path of Exile 2, support skills also fire projectiles from up to 4 points on each side of you, which means that even if we have 5 projectiles, we're not going to be really benefiting from it. I think it will cap out, unless there's greater volley, which we don't know yet. Although Jonathan, I think, did mention that there's lesser multiple projectiles. I have them on another skill, and then, well, they're just called multiple projectiles in Path of Exile 2, but initially he did say that there's also the greater version. So I'm not sure if that's still in the game, but for now it's not listed anywhere, so I'm just going under the assumption that we don't have that. So this is what I chose. So for volley is also going to be pretty good. For clear, it's just basically 66% more damage, assuming we have +1 from the ascendancy, and we take into account 20% less damage if we're firing all projectiles, so that's around 60% more damage if you hit all 4 projectiles, right? So it's pretty good. And of course, after that, you're just gonna wanna have support gems, whatever you think is best. There's a couple of good ones. For example, there is Innervate, of course, which if you wanna boost your pack clear speed, so Innervate is pretty good. Assuming crit still works like it does, if you crit, you shock. So Innervate is just 35% more damage. And there's also, well, there's a bunch of other ones. There's weapon elemental damage. There's just empower damage as well. But again, you have to be smart about which gems you're using, right? Because we only have a limited amount at the moment. So personally, I will probably go with Chain, simply because it will help us against bosses with Lightning Rod. So the numbers in here indicate kind of the general combo order against bosses, not in maps. In maps, let's hope that we have enough damage that we don't really need to use anything other than Lightning Rod and Lightning Arrow. But Lightning Rod, well, it's basically just a damage multiplier when you're using things that chain. Albeit, each lightning rod does not deal that much damage, but if we have 6 chains, that's 6 times 28. It's a little bit over 100%, it's like 130 or something damage. So it's still a pretty good multiplier, right? Now, with this, I wanted to do multiple projectiles. Primarily because I don't really want to spam just a lot of lightning rods, and they don't really have much value if you just spam them, unless they chain off of each other or something. I don't know. But since we only have 1 chain support, it's like really hard to balance it, because the limiting factor from lightning rod damage is gonna be the amount of chains that you have, and assuming we have nothing on the tree, you're gonna have 6 chains, right? So if you're playing multiple projectiles, and you're Deadeye, so you just use this 2 times and you have 8 lightning rods, and your thing can only chain 6 times, so you're getting, well, you only need to cast it twice, and then you don't really need to do anything else, right? And just shoot your lightning arrow. So this is gonna be one of your also primary consistent damage sources against bosses. So you will want some damage support gems over here as well. Again, which gems you choose, it's up to you. But be smart about it, of course. We have a limited amount. What is happening? So hopefully this is gonna be enough. Just lightning arrow and lightning rod, and that should get you through maps in most scenarios. Now, there will be cases where you will come across a rare that is a little bit harder to kill, right? So then we would kind of go into the normal order of skills. So initially you would want electrocuting arrow. What it does, if you guys don't know, is basically there's you build up the electrocution It's a new status effect, which basically is sort of a stun. It's you build it up and then it basically stuns the target for I don't know how long. It seemed like it's around 2 seconds. Might depend on the boss or things like that, because, well, depending on how fast you can charge it, might be pretty OP, right? But point is, you do electrocuting arrow, you shoot a bunch of lightning rods, and then you continue shooting lightning arrow until you build up the electrocution to 100%, and then the mob gets stunned, and then we use Snipe. Now, I would like to be able to convert everything to lightning damage, right? 100% lightning damage. It would just synergize much, much better. As it is right now, I have not seen any indication that we will be able to do so, at least easily. There's always, mods on gloves, things like that. But since we don't really have masteries right now, so I'm not sure how that's gonna work. But hopefully we can get at least a good amount of lightning conversion. But even if we don't, it's not really a big deal. Of course, you do lose out on a bunch of damage from the passive tree, right? If you're speccing primarily into lightning damage. But then again, you can also spec into things like projectile damage. So you're gonna have to work it out, right? But Snipe. Now Snipe is actually really huge. So of course this does mean that you will have to make use of it properly, which means that you will have to release the Snipe yourself when it's fully charged for the guaranteed crit. As you can see, if you release it when it's full charged, it will cause the explosion, which against bosses we don't really care too much, but I guess it's fine against rares as well if there's like a couple of mobs around, it could help. But I don't really want to rely on Snipe during mapping too much. So, because there's a lot of scenarios that can make it hard to do. But you want to release the Snipe at the right time, which is also supported. I hope that it is supported by window of opportunity. I'm not exactly sure if it is, but if it is, because this requires channeling skills that have special effects when released, and this kind of does have that, right? So I'm going under the assumption that it does work with window of opportunity, which is 50% more damage, which is huge, right? At the downside of having to time it a little bit better. So, might not be for everyone, but I'm going to try making it work, and I'm hoping that it does support the skill. And then also we have Hourglass. Now, Hourglass is again 50% more damage at the cost of having 8-second cooldown, which is fine, because against bosses you're never going to be spamming Snipe anyway. That's why I have these, that's why I have this rotation that I thought of, I guess, is when we electrocute them, we try electrocuting basically sets up our Snipe, right? And we're not gonna be doing it too often, so having Hourglass on it is perfectly fine in my opinion. And then we also have range combat, so that's 35% more damage if we move away. So we're playing a Deadeye, we're gonna be at least somewhat away from the enemies anyway, so hopefully we can make use of the full 35%, right? It really depends on how long the boss is stunned for, if we can back off to get the full bonus of it, or there's a lot of scenarios where you might not get full benefit of this, but hopefully we do. Well, hopefully you position yourself that you do, right? And then there's also critical damage. Now, Snipe already has 200% crit damage bonus. We don't know yet how hard it is to get crit in Path of Exile 2, like how the multiplier, how hard it is to get. And this does come with a pretty hefty downside, but we don't care about it, but because we have a guaranteed critical hit. So this could be a good gem if critical damage is fairly hard to scale. If it isn't, then you can choose one of the other support gems maybe. But again, support gems are kind of important, right? So you kind of have to balance it out. But as you can see, we have 4 perfectly viable support gems already for this, and I imagine this is probably gonna stay. If window of opportunity works, this might be one of the better setups. At least in my mind it is. I don't know, maybe someone will find something better. But these seem to be like kind of perfectly tailored for Snipe in this scenario, in the bossing scenario, right? So I'm hoping that this deals a lot of damage, and we deal some big numbers. But yeah, other than that, we have escape shot. This is gonna be your kind of escape skill. You might wanna use it with faster attacks because we don't really care about damage, and faster attacks. Actually, I think faster casting has less damage. Faster attacks doesn't have a downside, if I'm not mistaken. Point is, the faster this thing goes, the faster you cover some distance. So it might be good to have some extra attack speed on this. Now there's the spirit gems that I chose. I think these are going to be the best ones, damage wise at the very least. Well, not only damage wise, but the Herald of Thunder seems to be a very good. Well, just Heralds in general, honestly, seem pretty insane in Path of Exile 2. So Herald of Thunder, since we're mostly lightning damage, is going to be fine. And because it does have the requirement that you have to kill a shocked enemy, and let's hope that we have some shock. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about this. So with electrocuting arrow, we do ideally want to make use of lightning exposure for this. Maybe even more duration as well if we see that it's too hard to electrocute the bosses in those 8 seconds, right? Because we also have to use Snipe, and that also takes time. I imagine it's like 1 second channel time or something like that. So ideally, if we can, we want to have 100% lightning convert, right? So we, well, so the shocks are bigger and either have 100% crit or some shock supports. There's a couple of shock supports. They're not that crazy. There's like 20% increase, and there's Voltaic Mark as well, which has 50% increased chance of shock. So depending on on the tree, on how strong your character is, on your critical chance, you might not need this. But Sniper's Mark isn't even that great, to be honest. It's 38% crit damage, so this is probably gonna be better in most cases. At least in my mind it is, assuming you shock for like 30%, and then you increase it by 30% more, so that's like 10% more damage, hopefully, right? While that 38% crit damage late game is probably gonna, probably not gonna amount to much. But who knows? Snipers might still be good. And there's also things like cast on crit, cast on shock, but they do reserve spirit. That's why I didn't really put it in here. So we don't know how hard it is to get a good amount of spirit, right? Again, but Herald of Thunder seems to be pretty good for clear, and Lingering Illusion is sort of a defensive option. I think this is a pretty good skill, especially for any range character, sort of to give you more time to breathe, right? If you guys played Elden Ring, you know how much easier it is to do bosses with, let's say, a summon or another person, for the fact that it allows you to breathe. The bosses allow you to breathe more, and you can heal up and things like that. So this kind of will serve the same purpose. Not only against bosses, although it might even be the case that it doesn't even work against bosses. Although in Path of Exile 1, things like taunts do work against bosses. So, this is probably going to be just generally good on most characters, in fact, especially ranged characters. So, Barrage also. Barrage is an interesting thing. I'm really hoping that it works with Snipe. Granted, it will make Snipe have 30-second cooldown, which might or might not be worth, depending on the on how fast we can electrocute them, right? Maybe just having the 8 seconds is going to be plenty, and maybe we electrocute them every 8 seconds and we can pull off a snipe every 8 seconds. But if we can't, if we see that it takes us much longer to electrocute them, Barrage might be an option. Well, also, I'm not sure if it works with Snipe because it's a channeling skill. I'm hoping that it does, and I'm hoping that I can't just permanently electrocute enemies that I just want to kind of make use of this, because with other skills that I have in here, it's not really not really that big of a deal using them. There is Rain of Arrows. Rain of Arrows could benefit from this if it works, because it is a payload skill, so maybe it doesn't. But the Rain of Arrows could be a good addition as well, although we already have quite a few buttons. We have 1, 2, we have 5 buttons in here, and then Barrage would be the 6th. So, already pretty button heavy. But Barrage could work with Snipe, potentially. And if it doesn't, you can always use it with rain of arrows. Again, you kind of do want to convert everything to lightning, so it's easier to scale everything, right? So this is a pretty cool spell. I like it. We could potentially use it as well. But yeah, this is my plan going into Path of Exile 2. I imagine not a lot will change from this. There's really, well, this is my biggest question, right? Whether it's actually worth it to keep the chain support, because you know you could be using a damage mod. I mean a damage support gem. Oh, and there's also fork. I forgot about fork. But the reason why I'm leaning more towards chain is solely because of lightning rod. So we have some consistent damage against bosses. But you know, maybe eventually we don't even need that. Maybe we just use pierce and call it a day or something, or I don't know. But yeah, this is the plan. For me, at the very least, I am really excited about Path of Exile 2. I'm a huge Elden Ring fan, I guess. I've done some pretty difficult runs, and you know, this seems right up my alley. And the well, the game just looks great, like right visually, and of course there's end game already, which is insane. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys you know, also play Deadeyes and just blast Breach and Delirium with me, so we can flood the market. And yeah, if you guys got any ideas of your own, or maybe you have some different way of you know, blasting, feel free to drop a comment and we can chat about it. But yeah, that is it for today. Not sure when the next video is coming. Probably in a week or something, after, you know, we play a little bit of Path of Exile 2, unless there's some new info, unless the tree is revealed. Although I don't really want to use the data mined version. Yeah, well, because there's a chance that the data mined version will come out, right? So I'm not really too keen on that, but if it becomes public information like a day before, that would be awesome. I can plan a little bit. But other than that, that is it. I will talk to you guys later. Bye bye.